So we're talking about the power of one, and that is the power of the emergence of the one in this universe. Our universe specializes in originality, and originality means that we are originating from the beginning. We have originated from the beginning, that we are a singular and unique phenomenon and force in this cosmos, and we are originating. So we're original. That means the idea of us, in a certain sense, was present in the very beginning of this universe, because everything is combined and recombined, combined and recombined, and finally come to this moment where, poof, here's Jessa, here's Laura, whatever, we emerge as this singular being who has never been before and will never be again. And it's interesting too, along the timeline of our lives, even each day is new in that moment. And that day has never been before and will never be again. So it's all an originating energy coming from the beginning, and our task is going to be to participate with that original energy, originating energy. So on this path, we are looking at who I am, what I remember myself to be. Who are we? And what kind of cosmos do we inhabit? And what kind of cosmos inhabits us? Who is me? These are the age-old questions. From the beginning, we have sensed we are part of something much greater than ourselves. And we felt this mystery in clouds and rocks and bird formations. We've painted it on the walls of caves 16,000 years ago in France, in Spain. We've danced to enter this mystery. We've chanted repetitive prayers to enter into this mystery. We have walked on fire. We have immersed in water. We have breathed enhancing vapors. We have ingested mind-altering substances. We've buried ourselves alive in pyramids. And we've spent years in cells and caves and endured all manner of secret initiations to amplify the vision and the voice within and without, and to understand who we are. The way that we have entered into this phenomenon of this cosmos and this reality has shifted and changed so much over the years, and depending on our culture, how we're raised, what we're taught, what kind of format we're born into. I wanted to begin by talking about briefly the primal religion that is inside of us. And the primal religion is it's like a built-in innate power, an innate recognition, an innate feeling of wonder and awe and reverence that we have for our world, and that people have had from the beginning of time. The people who lived on this land where we are right now, the indigenous people, were the Ohlonies, and they certainly felt that deep awe. I mean, we've lost a lot of that, clearly, right, these days, but they felt a really deep awe and presence and aliveness in the land. And I just wanted to read you a little bit out of this book, The Ohlone Way, a little bit out of the section called The Basket Makers. Let's see, the basket makers. Okay, so this is about just a normal everyday task, right? of making a basket. So this may be how it might have unfolded. For days she worked on the basket as if in a dream. The rows of stitches were tiny, even, smooth, and rounded, like the scales of a lizard, a snake, or some other living thing. A living thing that seemed to be breathing in her hand as she worked toward completion. Where did she get the pattern from, the dancing diamond shapes that were radiating out of the center knot and caressing the firm roundness of the basket? The woman herself did not know. She had seen similar baskets and had carefully studied how they were made. Also, she worked well within the tradition of her tribelet, a tradition that would instantly differentiate her people's baskets from those of any other group. Nevertheless, her basket was not a mere imitation. It was a new design, bold and original. Yet she worked with complete surety, as if perhaps the design already existed somewhere else, somewhere in the spirit world, and she was merely copying it and executing it. She works to make this basket, bringing in what she perceives from the other world and through her own being. She's the conduit for this basket, and she brings in feathers and works with this the making of the basket, and it becomes a very bold conception, and in the end it works, and she becomes more quiet as she works on the basket and more certain. So bringing this basket forward, maybe in the beginning it takes a lot of meditation, it's very difficult, but then it begins to become clearer and clearer as each coil of the basket emerges. Then in the end, she has produced something that is elegant, something that she can feel is magnificent. The basket, now completed in the best alone way, totally finished, without an imperfection. We'll come back to that idea. Without an imperfection. The other women of the village who had been watching her out of the corner of their eyes now broke their silence. A tremendous joy spread among them as they pushed and jostled one another to get a closer look. It was a splendid basket, they agreed, a splendid basket. She was cured from whatever was missing, and now she was whole again. That's the role of art and primal consciousness and bringing forward to heal ourselves. So our reverence and our awe, a lot of it is about making ourselves whole, and then the art that arises out of that is about finding the pieces through our art that are missing, that we want to bring into ourselves, and then we want to put out into the world. And we can do this, our primal consciousness wants to do this in very basic, fundamental ways with the work that we do, whatever our work is. So what happens is that these models begin to emerge for healing and for how we conceptualize our world, our spirit world, and our natural world. And one of the models has to do with a really basic first-hand experience of the world. That would be more like the shamanic model of the world, which is involved with dreams and visions and dancing and humor and sweat lodges and attaining altered states to know, connecting with animals, plants, the elements, the fire, the water, the air, the earth, the weather, connecting with food for healing, connecting with weather for healing, and drawing on cosmic powers. And then the other model that tends to come out is a more elaborate model with where humans began to develop very elaborate gods, very elaborate forms of meditation, very elaborate forms of offerings and renunciation, And we're going into Hinduism right now, where we begin to look at first early Hinduism, which became very much involved with that kind of model. And then Hinduism starts to move and change, and it shifts. Okay, so but in the beginning, in the Indus Valley civilization, okay, wait, let me backtrack. The Alonis who lived here, and I bring them up because we're on their land. We're like perceiving this energy that is coming up through the land. And so the Alonis were here. Here is the west coast of what is now, Northern California, for what was thought was about 5,000 years. And then when there was a dig that happened right here, and I actually worked on that dig, it was really fun. They found an implement in one of the pits that placed the dating, they did the carbon dating, placed the dating at about 9,000 years old. So basically, if I just round up and say, well, they had been here for 10,000 years or whatever, who knows? Forever, who knows? Until, I don't want to get off the subject, but until the Spaniards came, within 40 years, they were wiped out. A lot of it from illness, So tragic, but the energies persist, and you can feel these energies in the land. When you walk on the land here, it's very powerful. So 10,000 years or older. Okay, so now we go back to the early Hinduism, the Indus Valley civilization, and this is where a lot of the deep the primal culture, the hunting and gathering and agricultural culture, then developed this very elaborate religion between 2500 and 1500 BC. And in this religion, which was really rising around 1800 to 1500 BC, along with this at the same time where the religion was rising with Greeks and Latins and Celts and Germans, there was this movement all around the world to develop a vast literature and thought. And in India, or rather the Indus Valley civilization, what came about were the Vedas. And the Vedas are these ancient scriptures. It's a collection of hymns. And this the Vedas means that which is heard. And then these were recorded and the purpose or the point was to be able to work with the gods, and especially to gain control over the gods, nature, and humans. So you could do that by following very explicitly all these different ways of relating to the different gods. So the gods were, for example, Indra, the sky god, who had a long flowing beard and flung thunderbolts, which I find quite interesting. He drank soma, fortified himself, and fought. And as an example, he fought the serpent. Okay, drinking soma was one of the major things that was that connected people with their spirituality. And soma, it is still unknown to this day what it was, but it looks like through some of the descriptions, it was it was mushrooms mixed with milk. Hallucinogens, hallucinatory mushrooms mixed with milk, because they always talk about mixing it with milk. And then you could go into an experience of the gods or whatever may appear. Another god was Rudra or Shiva, a mountain god who was responsible for horrendous storms, and you needed to pray to him, and to pray to him would be auspicious. There was the goddess of dawn, young and white-robed, and many other gods. Agni, who was the god of fire, who purifies and cleanses. Soma, the god of plant substance. And you could pray to Soma to achieve a state of immortality and knowledge of the cosmos. So there are all these gods. And beneath and around and above all these gods was this concept of Brahman. And Brahman is Brahman is an essence, which means the prayer, the holy word, the sacred knowledge, the incantation, the mystic utterance, the sacred syllables, the holy power in the living moment, which also gets translated as God. But it's got all these different definitions. And I want to share something with you from the Rig Veda, the 129th hymn of the 10th book in the Vedas. And this describes this cosmic reality called, quote, it's called that one thing, which refers to Brahman. So let's see if I can find it in this book. Let's see here. Okay. See, what I want to do is I want to give you the feeling about where we're coming from and where we're going. So right now we're in some ancient texts. Okay, so here we go. That one thing. So this is part of the Vedas. Then there was neither being, called sat, or non-being, asat, sat. There was no air, no firmament beyond it. Was there a stirring? Where? Beneath what cover? Was there a great abyss of unplumbed water? There was no death, nor anything immortal, nor any sign dividing day from night. That one thing, breathing no air, was yet self-breathing. No second thing existed whatsoever. Darkness was hidden in a deeper darkness. This all was as a sea without dimensions. The void still held unformed what was potential. Under the power of warmth, called tapas, produced the soul, until the power of warmth produced the soul one. Then in that one, desire stirred into being. Desire that was the earliest seed of spirit. The sages, probing in their heart with wisdom, discovered being's kinship to non-being. Stretching their line across the world, they pondered, was aught above it, or was aught below it? Bestowers of the seed were there, and powers, free energy below, above swift action. Who truly knows, and who can here declare it, whence it was born, and how this world was fashioned? The gods came later than the earth's creation. Who knows then out of what the world has issued, whether the world was made or was self-made? He knows with full assurance, he alone, who in the highest heaven guards and watches. He knows indeed, but then perhaps he knows not. Okay, so that is a feeling that was beginning to arise out of in early Hinduism. Okay, and then first I'll say that there was a movement to gain control over that, the unknown, and that we could do that. I'm saying we, as if I were there, and probably I was, and probably we all were, but that we could control it through all our rituals and, our ablutions and so on. Okay, so then there is an emergence of a new movement, and this new movement is exemplified and spelled out in the Upanishads. Okay, so the Upanishads is the next stage, and the Upanishads means the word Upanishad means standing near a teacher. So these are all speakings of the teacher to a student, and this ushers in a new speculative period. So again, it goes back to this really big question, but now with even a higher consciousness. who are we? Who am I? What am I doing? What do I remember? And what will I become? So that question arises very strongly for the individual, as it was doing in other places around the world at the same time, like in Greece, asking the same question. Who am I? What am I doing? Some of these things were related to a worldwide movement. Okay, so this is the new speculative period, and it involves dialogue, or dialoguing with like conversations with God, like Neil Walsh today, dialoguing with the guides, or with the teacher, and a new form of asceticism, which would be maybe separating ourselves out to hear and to know and to have a direct experience with whatever it might be. It's a trend away from external ritualism, and a trend toward a feeling of monism, which is like a unified view rather than all these separate gods. It would be monistic, one. There is a one energy here. Let us explore it, as opposed to a dualistic energy. And even the energy of the one would also even apply to both the spirit and the body as one energy. But even those two are not separate, the spirit and the body. That the spirit and body are actually one, and this world and the next world are actually one, and this world and the world that we come from are actually one. And the idea would be, I am the essence of the universe, that thou art. And who are you? You are the self. You are yourself, who emerges from the universe. And we've been talking about the idea of the zero into the one, into the zero, into the one. Okay, zero is the pan-original field. Zero is the field prior to manifestation, or it's all potential. It comes together and emerges in a one that is that original, unique being. Then that one disperses back into the field. So it's kind of like a binary system that keeps moving in and out and combining these forms. So now here we are looking at this in the Upanishads. We are looking at this movement that moves into the one, and as it moves into the one contains all the powers of the field, the potential of the field. The one is the field contained, and then as a unique original being who moves the manifest reality into another place and then disperses. And as manifest reality is changed, the field changes, but it's really all one. It's like one being and one movement in and out of manifestation. Okay, so and we'll be reading some of these Upanishads. So Chandogya Upanishad. So a lot of these are discussions between a student and a teacher. And this is the way a lot of things develop in India and still do today, is a discussion between a student and a teacher. So the student says to the teacher, he says, "Please, sir, tell me more about this self, this Holy One." "Be it so, my son," says the teacher. "The rivers in the east flow eastward, the rivers in the west flow westward, and all enter into the sea. From sea to sea they pass, the clouds lifting them to the sky as vapor and sending them down as rain. And as these rivers, when they are united with the sea, do not know whether they are this or that river, likewise all those creatures that I have named, when they have come back from Brahman, which is the all that is, I know not whence they came. All those beings have their self in the Holy One. That is the truth. The Holy One is the subtle essence of all, the self, and that Svetakidu, which is the name of the boy, that thou art." Okay. And about a tree. "Please, sir, tell me more about this self." "Be it so, my child. If someone were to strike once at the root of this large tree, it would bleed but live. If he were to strike at its stem, it would bleed but live. If he were to strike at the top, it would bleed but live. Pervaded by the living self, this tree stands firm and takes its food. But if the self were to depart from one of its branches, that branch would wither. If it were to depart from a second, that would wither. If it were to depart from a third, that would wither. If it were to depart from the whole tree would wither. Likewise, my son, know this: the body dies when the self leaves it, but the self dies not. All that has itself in him, they use the male for ease of translation, but there is no gender. All that has itself in him alone. He is the truth. This is Brahman. He is the subtle essence of all. He is the self, and that, Svetakitu, that thou art. Please, sir, tell me more about this self. Be it so. Bring a fruit of that Nyagroda tree. Here it is, sir. Break it. It is broken, sir. What do you see? Some seeds, extremely small, sir. Break one of them. It is broken, sir. What do you see? Nothing, sir. The subtle essence you do not see, and in that is the whole of the Nyagroda tree. Believe, my son, that that which is the subtle essence, in that have all things their existence. That is the truth, that is the self, and that, Svetakitu, that thou art. Please, sir, tell me more about this self. Be it so. Put this salt in water and come to me tomorrow morning. Svetakitu did as he was bidden. The next morning his father asked him to bring the salt, which he had put in the water, but he could not, for it had dissolved. Then said Uddalaka, sip the water and tell me how it tastes. It is salty, sir. In the same way, continued Uddalaka, though you do not see Brahman in this body, Brahman is indeed here. That which is the subtle essence, in that have all things their existence. That is the truth, that is the self, and that, Svetakitu, that thou art. So this is a Hinduism, and this is moving into a sense of ourselves as universe, moving in and out of existence. Brahman, he, she, it. This one thing. This world is Brahman, according to Hinduism. Brahman, the pervasive presence, the constitutive element, the world of nature, the reality within and yet beyond, the sun, the moon, lightning, space, wind, fire, water, sound. One of my favorite Upanishads is the Kina Upanishads, which I have used, taught, shared for years and years and years. At whose behest does the mind think? Who bids the body live? Who makes the tongue speak? Who is that effulgent being that directs the eye to form and color and the ear to sound? The self is the ear of the ear, mind of the mind, speech of the speech. He is also the breath of the breath and eye of the eye. Having given up the false identification of the self with the senses and the mind, and knowing the self to be Brahman, all that is, the wise, on departing this life, become immortal. Brahman, the eye does not see, nor the tongue express, nor the mind grasp. Brahman, we neither know nor are able to teach. Different is Brahman from the known, and different is Brahman from the unknown. So we have heard from the wise. That thou art. We are the field, and we are the one who emerges from the field. These are the concepts that we're still working with today. And for example, in Siddhartha, Hermann Hesse addresses this. So he talks about this. He talks about what is the meaning of a stone, of this stone, for example. This, he said, picking up the stone, is a stone, and within a certain length of time it will perhaps be soil, and from the soil it will become a plant, an animal, or a man. Previously I should have said, oh, this stone is just a stone. It has no value. It belongs to the world of Maya, illusion. But perhaps because within the cycle of change it can also become man and spirit, it is also of importance. That is what I should have thought, but now I think this stone is stone. It is also animal, God, and Buddha. I do not respect and love it because it was one thing and will become something else, but because it has already long been everything and always is everything. I love it just because it is a stone, because today and now it appears to me as a stone. I see value and meaning in each one of its fine markings and cavities, in the yellow, in the gray, the hardness and the sound of it when I knock it, in the dryness or dampness of the surface. There are stones that feel like oil or soap, that look like leaves or sand, and each one is different and worships Om in its own way. Each one is Brahman. At the same time, it is very much stone, oil, or soapy, and that is just what pleases me and seems wonderful and worthy of worship. But I will say no more about it. Words do not express thoughts very well. They always become a little different immediately they are expressed, a little distorted, a little foolish. And yet, it also pleases me and seems right that what is of value and wisdom to one man seems nonsense to another. Love that. Okay, and Aldous Huxley grappled with so many of these issues head on, especially in his book Island. And if you read this book Island, you know, this book is about taking Soma, opening the doors of perception and entering into this unitive consciousness. And for us, what we're looking for is, what is the meaning of this unitive consciousness? Can we enter into this unitive consciousness? Is this the place we live in? Okay, so we're just going to leave it with this, and then put out the challenge or the task to go inward, to experience, to enter into that dialogue, the inner dialogue or the outer dialogue, whatever it is, and see how we can move our consciousness forward through self-reflection and immersion in the field within and without.